Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Page of Swords podcast. This is episode 55, and I'm bringing on Ashely Soden. Is that how you pronounce the last name?
Yes, Soden.
Soden. So, wow, it has been a good year for you. This is your rookie year, huh?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That is awesome. So, I do know, I want to point out too, you're in Pennsylvania, right? Just like me.
I actually just moved to Delaware. I was in Pennsylvania, just moved right over the border.
How do you like Delaware? I don't think I've ever been.
It's nice. It's nice. There's different parts, it depends on where you go, just like any state. But I'm in a really nice area, getting settled in, and I love it. Yeah.
That's awesome. You know what? I'm actually looking at the NPC news to look at your history. And did you start competing in 2019?
I did. Yep.
Okay, and I see that was the Del Mar show, which is in Delaware, right?
Correct. Yeah, that was in Delaware.
Okay, so how did you like that experience?
That was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
the ride going into that first show, I just kind of went for it. So I had my daughter a year prior, and that was kind of what propelled me to get into bodybuilding. I was like, I want to set a goal for myself. I always wanted to do this. I never really followed through with it. Let me see what I can do. Mm-hmm. Took the year to train, lost the baby weight, surpassed losing the baby weight, built that muscle that I needed to, and then, brought that package in. And coming into the Delmarva, that was a wild ride because I not only won my class, but then I won the overall and qualified to go to the national level at that time. So,
and that was figure. So yeah, okay, nice. And I mean, you definitely have a lot of muscle that I see here in the picture. So like you already had a really good established like physique at that time. So I definitely noticed it. So did you have a coach for that show too and everything?
I did. I had a coach who basically monitored my diet. I trained myself and I did all of the, stage presence, posing, all of those things I did myself. And then I had somebody basically keep a watchful eye over my diet and make sure that I was doing the right things coming into the show and peaking properly.
That's awesome. What kind of like history do you have with just like sports or anything? Like, did you play stuff in high school?
Yeah, so I wasn't really like a guru in like one thing or the other, but I would like jump around. I was always athletic. I played softball at some point. I did gymnastics. I did like competitive cheerleading. I played, believe it or not, basketball at some point. Okay. I'm really short, so that's why I laugh. For anybody who knows me in person, I'm 5'0", so okay. Not a basketball player, not my sport, but just always active and doing stuff like that. And I was also on a rowing team as well. And so that's really what kind of gave me my natural V taper with the back muscles and everything like that. The combination of gymnastics and rowing is the two big ones there.
That's interesting you say that because with like sports like rowing, and then I know a lot of girls that swim, like Dana Lynn Bailey always talks about that she was a swimmer. And I'm like, well, that's where those really nice developed deltoids come from. So I guess that's exactly what you said, that nice taper, shoulders, lats. It's those upright row type of things, right?
Oh yeah. Especially with rowing. It's having that water resistance too. It's that repetitive training. I mean, it really does build that stocky muscle.
That's awesome that you hopped around. That kind of gets that whole body physique, getting the balance there if you're just hopping around from sport to sport, honestly. Yeah, that's awesome. So so your first show was Delaware. You just did one that year. And then obviously winning the overall in first place, you were nationally qualified. So it looks like in 2020, you did North Americans, which I do know that was in the tent. So, right?
Yep, midst of COVID, I was so happy to even get on stage that year. It actually got canceled like 2 or 3 times and then like pushed to later in the year. So that prep was it was like an ongoing prep. We had to coming into the peak and then like reverse diet out and then go back in and then reverse diet. It was a very long prep for sure.
Absolutely. I can only imagine, especially with that being September for North Americans, and it was outside in Pittsburgh, and I heard everybody was hot. So I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, that was a little wild because, they have the host hotel and then they have this tent set up outside to accommodate COVID and all of those things. And so everybody's walking and tans dripping off and, but that's just one of the things is about the sport is the athletes, we're committed, you know, we're committed. It doesn't matter, we make it work. And we're just happy and grateful to get on that stage. So the heat was welcomed. We were, you know, me and my fellow athletes, as far as my experiences went, we were just happy to be there.
Oh, for sure. And like I remember getting the live stream and it was pretty good, honestly, like because I know they didn't really allow any spectators. So the live stream was really nice for you guys too.
Yeah, yeah.
So did you have the same coach or nutrition person for yourself for that show too?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nice. So are you still with that person?
I'm not.
Okay.
However, I have not done a prep without him. So all of my preps were with the same person. But after the New York Pro, my last show, I, you know, decided to reach out to a really well-known mentor. No disrespect to my coach, he's amazing. You know, it's one of those things, I'm a firm believer, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it.
Yep.
But in the, you know, going into the pro league, once I did qualify and having already made my pro debut and seeing where I stack up, I think it's time for me to elevate my mentorship, elevate what I can get from, you know, people who have been in this space longer than I can even imagine it, and who know exactly what they're talking about. And you can never get enough information from people. So
no, and as much as we look at these like top gurus and coaches in our industry, it's like they got there for a reason. I mean, if you look at like people like Hani, who's had like so many Olympians, it's like, all right, you would think the guy really knows what he's doing and gets the results, right? So,
right. I mean, you know, his portfolio of clients speaks for itself. So
absolutely, and like you said too, with your previous guy, it sounds like I'm sure that was a good. It was a good time and place, right? Like you learned a lot, and then you kind of graduate, and you have to just kind of move on to college.
right, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So I do remember watching you at Universe last year. You had phenomenal posing. Where did you like, well, you did good at New York too, but I just remember watching you at Universe and go like, cause you were very unique with your posing and physique.
Thank you. Thank you. That was actually the first time I ever did women's physique.
Okay.
So I crossed over for the first time at Universe, and which is pretty wild to think that I was able to come in the place that I did, coming in second place for that, having never competed even at the local level doing that. So that was really kind of a whirlwind and an experience of just kind of like going for it.
Yeah.
Now, my posing is something that I really take a lot of time to focus on because, you know, at the end of the day, you can have the best physique, but if you can't present it, what's the point, right? So the art in this is slowing it down and being able to pull those lines out and display all of your hard work with grace and beauty, you know? And so with my posing with that, I actually coordinated with Rachel Daniels. She's amazing with her posing. Anybody that doesn't know, go check her out. She's amazing. Top-notch, next level poser. And she's really creating a movement right now in the industry. And man, that shit sets me on fire. Like it's, right? I love seeing her move. And so when watching her through her journey, I reached out to her and I was like, girl, help me. And so she and I, you know, collaborated, and she helped me with the individual routine for women's physique. And so she helped put together the choreography. She sent that over to me, and then it was up to me from that point forward to just practice it in and out and perfect those things as much as I can. You know, perfect.
Yes.
There's no such thing, but as much as you can. And she was extremely helpful, and she was a great mentor in that aspect. And I can't wait to work with her again.
I was going to say, she's been doing a lot of her videos and reels on Instagram, and then she like puts on outfits and stuff. I think that is so much fun. And, you know, I really hope that she starts that movement where maybe they start to bring physique girls back for like posing, guest posers at shows. Cause I think like I would want to go to an amateur show if I knew she was a guest poser. Just to see her like do a routine. I don't know. I just, in my opinion, like, cause that was really good what you said about setting this trend now where I'm like, yeah, let's keep this going. Let's get the ladies back on stage for some guest posing. Cause that's what they want to see, right? Those routines.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And then did you like give her music for her to make your routine too, or did she come up with all of it?
Nope. So basically we collaborated on this. So I think originally I sent her a different song, and then we ended up actually changing the song because I ended up finding the song I ended up going with. And so yeah, I provided that to her. And so what she did was she took like the little excerpt from it, chopped, like, cut it,
Mhm.
the parameters of, I think it was 60 seconds at that level.
Mhm.
And then she came up with the choreography, and we just kind of meshed those things together.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really neat because I bet I've noticed that like because I've never done a physique routine, but I think they look so cool. And I could just imagine how if you can just clip certain pieces of the song and make it maybe a little bit more dramatic faster, because like you said, you're kind of in a time crunch, but you really like the words, but you want that dramatic drop or something. It's like, okay. So I'm sure that that kind of helps you guys make it more of like a really fine-tuned presentation.
Well, and the music is a huge part of it, like a major part of it. It sets a vibe with the audience. And really, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do when you're on stage at that level is you're trying to bring out emotion and like make the audience feel you. Like I don't want the audience to see me on stage. I want them to feel me.
Yeah.
You feel that? Like
Yeah.
so when you bring that when you bring it the level of music and the music selection, it changes that. It changes the tone. It changes the way the audience engages with you or doesn't, or and then couple that with amazing posing,
Mhm.
and it's there's the show right there.
Absolutely. Right. Because I know like when we're watching routines and stuff, especially at that high level, like everybody, there's a lot of girls doing routines because that was a pretty big show, right? I remember it being pretty long.
Universe.
Yeah. Was Universe a bigger show?
Yeah,
Okay.
Universe and North Americans are both really big national level
Yeah.
shows.
I
They're
just
both
remember like last year, I remember it being so long that I was watching on my iPad and took it with me to the gym because I was like watching you girls do routines and stuff while working out. But it was like, I was like, this show is so long. There's so many competitors at this show.
Oh yeah, well, and especially national level too is that in my experience is where you see the most athletes in one competition because
Mhm.
there's so many people who are trying to qualify for the
Absolutely.
IFBB for the professional league. So you get that's where they start funneling it through. So
Yeah.
only certain people, only a couple pro cards get out, get laid out. So
Mhm.
there's backstage of a national show, North Americans and NPC Universe
Mhm.
mobbed, like so many athletes, insane. And then in contrast, going to New York Pro,
Yeah.
there's like there was I think 16 of us,
Yeah. There wasn't a full
just
20. It was,
16. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's definitely a more intimate endeavor when you're in the IFBB because there's not as many people who qualify.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've noticed too with the earlier shows, there's not as many pros jumping in right away that I've noticed. I think New York probably had the most that I saw, but for
Yeah, yeah.
figure, a lot of the pro shows, because I went to Toronto and like I was surprised how many showed up there. Not a lot, but there was like more figure than some of the other shows. And then I was tanning backstage at the Pittsburgh Pro, and it just was like, man, like this is the show that I want to do next year. And I'm thinking like, where I want more like competition. So I'm like hoping more girls will want to do earlier shows next year. But I understand why a lot of the girls don't. And that's awesome that you did. Was that something that you had in mind? Was I want to hit it earlier than later?
Not necessarily. My
Okay.
approach is actually based on location.
Okay.
So the New York Pro is one of the closer shows to me. Now,
Mhm.
will I do that moving forward? Not necessarily. I will jump around and go to different shows all over the place. So that's not going to be my ongoing strategy. But for my first, pro debut, I didn't know where I stacked up. So I actually went into New York Pro like just based on the location,
Mhm.
and not having been in the pro league, I hadn't realized when I started my prep for that show and made the like internal commitment
Mhm.
that it's actually one of like the biggest shows that on the in the pro league without getting like an invitation,
Yeah.
and obviously excluding the Olympia. So like at that level, that's probably why you saw a lot more competitors at the New York Pros, because it's just a really, really prestigious show, and a lot of people want to take on New York, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to see. I like that approach though, even though you didn't know. I see nothing wrong with a new pro being like, all right, I'm going to go big or go home. So I'm going right for the New York.
Well, I learned of that prior to signing my contract. So, you know, I could have pulled out, but once I learned that, I was like, no, I'm hungry for this. Like, let's see where I stack up. I have a very competitive spirit. So like, I'm like, yeah, bring it on.
How did it feel to sign your first contract?
Very foreign, because you know, it's it wasn't something that I was used to. It's not how the amateur league works. And so it was a learning curve. You know, it's just a signature. It's not anything crazy. But it goes to show the level of commitment is different in the professional league. There's a lot more professionalism to being in the professional league.
Right. And for anyone that doesn't know, because I think you'd be surprised how many amateurs don't actually know this, but if you break that contract, you have to pay a fee. Is it still 300 or did it go up?
Oh, no, it's up. I'm pretty sure it's $1,000 now.
$1,000 now? Okay. I heard 3 before, but see, it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't think people realize, like, because they want to turn pro, right? And they think that they won't have to, like, you don't technically pay to do the show, really. I mean, you got to pay for all the other things that come with it, but unlike the amateur level, but yeah, if you break it, you don't show up. Yeah, you have to pay way more than you did as an amateur.
Oh yeah. And not only that, but you know, prejudging in finals, some people become sore losers, right? And then they figure out what happened in prejudging and they want to like dip out. You can't do that. You can't do that in professional league. So you have to go to finals, regardless. I don't think that anybody should do that anyway. You know.
No, but that's the things to keep in mind. The things that you can get away with in the amateur level and what in the pro league is like, you cannot, because I don't really see too many pros talk about it as much, you know, like everybody sees like the picture with the signing the contract, but no one's reading the fine print.
Right. What's in the contract.
Exactly. And then I just know a lot of people are like, I just don't want to pay for shows anymore. And I'm just like, okay, well, there's more to that.
Yeah.
So going back to Universe real quick. So I do know you got second in physique and first in figure. Did they give second place a pro card for?
They did.
So you got your pro card in both pretty much.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
Amazing. Especially being that I had not done, you know, women's physique. I was just kind of trying it out.
Yeah.
Kind of dipping my toes in the water. And lo and behold, first time dipping my toes in the water, qualifying for the professional league. I was insanely humbled because I didn't have any level of expectation. I didn't really know how it would go. I also didn't know how they fully run that division with the individual routines and how it works. And so I was figuring it out as I went. Prejudging, they don't use your music. I like literally learned that as I was walking out on the stage, and didn't really know how to, you know, so it's a lot of figuring it out as I go. But the thing about this sport is it teaches you that you have to be adaptable and to just show that strong front when you're confident in what you've done throughout your prep and the fact that you're prepared. Those variables happen. So yeah.
Right. And you went from no heels to heels. So I feel like you were already a good poser. I noticed that, but I'm thinking you were able to adapt really quickly from throwing them on and off, I bet.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then beautiful suit too. Do you use the same person for all your suits?
I have. I've used Muscle Dazzle.
Okay. Yeah, the bright colors.
I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with them. I actually had a really good recommendation that I'm going to explore. I forget the name. I'd have to like look it up or whatever. But there are a lot of really, really good, well-known, reputable brands. So as long as they're, you know, vetted by other people, and you, like anybody that's like, oh, where should I get my suit from? Just look at the reviews of other people. You really can't go wrong as long as it's a place that, you know.
Is
has a good
blue,
factor and can bedazzle it.
yeah, is
Bling it
blue
out.
your go-to color? I think I saw a few where they were blue.
They're usually like blue, purpley, like those kind of colors. I think my first suit at the Delmarva at the local level was like a darker, like a real
Yeah.
dark like purple. But regardless, yeah, it's kind of been my go-to. To be determined though for my
Yes.
next show, because I think I am going to switch it up. So
That's exciting. I love that. That's, I
yeah,
mean, it's like a prom dress, right? It's like you might wear it a couple times, but sometimes it's fun to keep it a secret and then unveil it for the show. And I don't
yeah.
know, it's fun.
I always tell myself, I'm like, I already have a bunch of suits. I could just throw one of them on.
Yep.
But I always buy a new one.
Yeah, because we want it for like the pictures and stuff, or just like a memory of, because like, get one for the nationals and then get one
Yeah.
for the pro debut, right? It's a special occasion. So when you where'd my question go? I had it in my head. Oh, your feedback from Universe. So when you got your pro card, do you remember what your feedback was for you to move to the pro league?
Yeah. So first and foremost, they were like, figure out what division you want to be in,
Yeah.
and then like stick with it.
Okay.
If I wanted to stay in women's physique, I had to put on some size.
Okay.
For figure, they said that I already had the size that I need for figure.
Mhm.
Now they gave me some feedback, bring in tighter hamstring glute connection, develop the back a little bit more in terms of width at the top.
Okay.
It's always the name of the game in this sport, right? You can never have enough width at the top.
Nope.
And then some tricep development as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so those were the 3 points that I remember from that.
That's awesome. So you took a pretty good year? Let's see, July, and then New York was pretty early. So how long of an off season did you have?
So I went right into my off season. And that was in like July, I think it was,
Yes.
NPC Universe. So I reverse dieted, got myself to maintenance and then surpassed that and put myself to a surplus so that I can try and build and refine those muscles that I really needed to in those areas. And trying to also just maintain the areas that I wanted to maintain. I did that all the way through December. And at the end of December is when kind of started to shift out of the surplus, bring things back down to maintenance, ride that out a little bit. And then out of January is when we started going into a deficit. And that's where the prep mode came in and we were cutting at that point.
So it sounds like you did a pre-prep to the prep.
Yeah, I mean, it was a legitimate off season. So some people in their off season, let me rephrase, it's not an off season, it's an improvement season.
Right.
Off season would be like if you like take off, like you don't follow a diet or a plan or workout or try to do those things. Now in my improvement season, I'm still eating meals at the times that I want to. I'm still watching my water and I'm hitting the gym every day. No differently than when I'm in prep. The difference is what I'm eating and whether or not I'm adding cardio into that. The routine and the regimen of what I'm doing, that maintained itself the entire time. It never stopped really. I mean, I think after Universe, I maybe took a week and a half to not track anything, not just, let myself eat some pancakes, whatever it was. And then got back on track and shifted the foods towards like bulking foods. And then the portion sizes change, of course, and bringing that cardio back down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I get that with people they'll be like, wow, you're so strict, like all the time. Right. Like you don't really take an off season. Like, you know what you just said about like, I'm always on a meal plan. Right. And to me, I'm just like, well, I'm following a plan. Right. And it's just easier to change your variables and get ready for a show when it comes time. I mean, I'm eating in a surplus, like you were talking about also. But I feel like when you're at this level too, at the pro level, like you're a professional all year, even when you're not on the stage. So I think people might not quite understand until they get there sometimes. But I tell you what, it does make a huge difference that once you turn pro, it's like, all right, every step you make will affect you months from now when you're back on stage. So it sounds like you did, like you said, you did a solid off season of, reverse, bulk, if that's what you want to call it, maintain, and then prep.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about that too is that that was the first time that I approached my improvement season with as much tenacity as I did in that way.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that that played a huge role in my qualification into the pro league. So I started doing the things that professionals do,
Yeah.
right? As an amateur, I started doing the things that professionals do, and then I became a professional.
Yeah.
So,
yep, I totally agree. I totally agree. Because I remember in prep for my national show, there were just things that sucked so hard. And I was just like, but you're an athlete now, so act like it. So then you become a pro, right? Because you have to treat the sport like you're an athlete. No, we're not basketball players like LeBron James or whatever else, but it's just the fact that some of the things that we do that might not be fun is stuff that normal people aren't going to do. So we have to do it to be at the next level.
Well, and even I'll take that a step further. You can flip the script in your mind, right? The not fun part, they're all things that we tell ourselves, right? So like we can find joy in things for different reasons. Maybe cardio is extraneous, but you love the endorphin rush and you love the lifestyle and you love the things that are going to come from it. And so you learn to embrace that with a different mindset. I love my cardio because it works for me. And like now, does it kick my ass? Yes. But like, that's the name of the game, is to put in that effort. And then the reward that you get from that is fulfilling in many ways. So how you talk to yourself, it really matters. The things that you say, like if you're sitting there and you're eating food and you're like, oh man, like everyone's criticizing me for being so strict. You're gonna have a negative experience about it. You know what I do when I'm eating my chicken? Dan, this is the best Chick-fil-A of my life. Like, it's things that you tell yourself, you know, and it makes it enjoyable. Like, have fun with it. Life is what you make of it. So
it is. It really is. And competing is fun, especially like you said, when you're backstage, especially now that you're at the pro level, because that's way different than amateur. But I've always said, when you do shows and you get to be backstage and meet people and you're all glammed up and you get your pictures, like that's fun and it's worth the work, even if there were days it sucked, right? It's like you brought your best that day.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, so let's talk about the pro show a little bit more. So you took your off season, went in, did the New York. How was it? I bet it was wonderful.
It was great. It was amazing. It was an honor to even be on that stage, let alone to be standing next to these other women who I've looked up to my entire bodybuilding like journey. So there was a lot of shock and awe of like, I can't believe that like this is where I am. I remember seeing the New York Pro and watching it from my home and being like, wow, like, could you imagine? And not really fully knowing that I would end up there. Always having that deep down desire, but not knowing that I would end up there. And then, you know, fast forward there and looking back at myself sitting on the couch, it's like seeing a dream manifest and then like holding it in your hand. And you're like, holy shit, I did it. I'm here. And that was just a really, really cool feeling. Just to look around and see where I was and see the level of athletes that I was competing against. And there are girls that I've looked up to for years that I beat. That is wild to me. And then there's women that I've looked up to and also new women as well that beat me in, you know, and I'm honored to have been in that lineup with them and to have fallen where I did.
Yeah, you got 6th place. That is awesome for your first pro show. Yeah, because I remember, did Courtney do that show too? She was the other one. Okay, and she was a little higher than you, I think, right? 3rd.
I think she came in 3rd. I don't want to misspeak. She did place higher than me. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and you two girls were like, this is both of your rookie years, and I was just so ecstatic for both of you that she was 4th, but either way, like. Awesome. Like, cause I know in my mind, I'm like, okay, rookie year, like these are the pros, right? I would be happy with top 10.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and you were like almost cracking top 5, like that's awesome. So that must have felt really good because that had to have made you feel, I definitely belong here. I made the right choice staying in figure and doing the show.
Oh yeah, I mean, it gave me the validation and the feedback that I'm in the thick of it.
Mhm.
I know that I bring a competitive package to the stage. This is just inherently, it's a competitive sport.
Mhm.
So you can't be a sore loser with where you line up. It makes me more hungry
Mhm.
for it. It makes me want to work harder. And I'll be back on that stage. You bet your ass. I'll be back on that stage.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And I know so I remember seeing you at Universe 100%, but I felt bad because I wasn't even following you until Mandy was telling me that you guys were getting a hotel together for this show. And I'm like, I'm not even following her. So yeah, like I said, so you and Mandy got a room together. So that's awesome because even as like a pro, you met up with another pro and like made a little friendship, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny. We actually connected through Instagram, and
Mhm.
we kind of had a virtual friendship, if you will.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was planning on doing that show as like I already predetermined that I was doing that. I think before her, she was doing some other shows, and then she was like, "Hey, I think I might jump into New York Pro." And you know, at that point, based on the fact that she took a little bit to check out the host hotel and everything like that, there weren't any rooms available. So I was like, just come and room with me. Like, I got you. I got 2 beds. It's all good.
That's awesome. That's super nice of you too, because I know that is like, I hear a lot about that, in the amateurs, I'm sure it can be the same, but in the pro level, it sounds like you definitely start to see more of like the figure sisterhood and stuff among
Yeah.
the group. So I love
Well,
that.
actually, I'm gonna quote Mandy really quick. Mandy actually said something to me, or sorry, not to me. She said it on her story one time, and it stuck with me. And I really liked this. And she said it's not that we're competing against each other; we're competing with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's she's completely right. Like we all go through it to get there, and that bonds us. Even though that we're all trying to go after that top spot,
Mhm.
it bonds us, and it is a sisterhood in a certain way.
Yeah, and it's great too because everybody worked hard. And when you make it to the pro level, like you obviously made it there for a reason, right? So, and it's going to be a lot of these elite genetics and people that take this seriously. And I think at that level too, it's like, hey, like it's much nicer to have friends too. I think everybody will look less stressed. No one wants to like have a cat fight backstage that I know of.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I've never seen any of that. I've only seen a camaraderie in this sport. I've never seen cattiness. I haven't seen drama. Now maybe that's just my experience, but this is at every from the local level, national level, other national show, pro league, and everything else in between. So it's nice. It's really nice.
Do you remember the feedback that you got from the New York? Because I know once you get into the pro league too, you can get your feedback right away from the judges. I'm assuming, did Tyler or who gave you the feedback?
I actually am having a difficult time getting in touch with
Really?
somebody for that. I reached out a few times, and so I have a couple emails out. I'm still trying to get it back. Somebody gave me a point of reference, so if and when I get that feedback, I'll circle back with you, and maybe I'll pop back on here and tell you what
Okay.
it
That would be
was.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm always interested in feedback. Because when I was at the Pittsburgh tanning and I got to see Tyler like kind of, giving the girls feedback, it's just so interesting because at the pro level, they're a lot more detailed with what they expect with you guys. I feel like in the amateur level, you start to hear like, oh, come in more conditioned. And that's like
yeah,
everybody gets that. But at the
right.
pro level, I can tell that like Tyler was giving these girls like very pinpoint, like fix your waist or more of like more back depth where it was just like you could tell it was more individual and everything, especially coming right off the stage. So that's why I was curious if you had received it right away or not. But I tell you what, those judges, if you don't get them at the show, sometimes it's like so hard to get them.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, well, to be determined with that. But I am determined to figure that out because I'm very feedback oriented. I take it in a constructive way. It's extremely helpful to me to know what I can work on. The body's a big place. Like you want to figure out what you got to do and work towards that. So To be determined. I'll let you know.
Awesome. So you said you have a daughter, right?
I do. Mhm.
Okay, so just one kid. I mean, how old is she?
She'll be 4 in August.
Okay,
So,
so how's
you know,
is she
give and
cool with
change.
mom? Is she cool with mom being a bodybuilder? She doesn't really
Oh,
understand it. Yeah.
she loves it.
Does
Loves
she?
it. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Like, I always hear her all the time. She'll go and like pick one of her toys up and be like, "Look, mom, I'm strong like you," and it like melts me. I'm like, "That's right. That's my baby."
Yeah. That's super cute. I love that whenever these bodybuilders have their kids. And has she gotten to go to any of your shows yet?
She went to my first show, the Delmarva. It was the most local show. And so the other shows I traveled and she actually stayed with her grandmother.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's not a bad thing. I mean, let's be honest here. We know prep and getting ready for shows, we kind of just want our own space and like nothing going on with other people. But
I think when it comes to show day is like, I'm a very like focused and it's like a mental space for me. And the thing is, my daughter comes first to everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So admittedly, if she's like there, I'm going into mom mode.
Yeah.
Not prep mode. And so not to say that those things can't overlap or that they wouldn't ever, that wouldn't ever happen. But as I was trying to qualify for the professional league and taking these steps in these qualifications, it was a deliberate, I want to keep my focus. So it was a deliberate tactic, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not a mom, but I know that's a lot of responsibility. And I know prep is a lot and every variable and how you feel, stress, we have to keep stress low. But props to you guys though, because sometimes when I do my cardio too, we were talking about the mindset and what you say about your cardio. Sometimes I tell myself, I'm like, I know a lot of moms that are going to have to get off of the cardio machine and go straight home and feed their kids breakfast. And I don't have to do that part. So at least I can just do the cardio and focus and I'm good. So good for you and your time management.
Let me tell you, girl, it is a revolving door of figuring it out. But that's what we do as athletes in this sport is we figure it out. We don't make the excuse, we just figure it out. So,
absolutely. Especially when you really want it. You will prioritize what you really want.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So if you were to do any pro show, is there any that are like your dream? Like I'm sure the Olympia is on that list, but is there another like pro show you have in mind?
Well, I would love to do the Arnold.
Yeah, true.
The Arnold, I mean, I know that that's an invitation only event. That's a dream to step on the Arnold stage would be a dream. And of course the Olympia. I mean, that goes without saying. It's the highest level that the sport goes. Those are the two big ones. Other than that, it's more about strategy, time of year, where I am with my body and what I have to do. In my improvement season, or am I coming out of that? Wherever I lie, it's kind of taking an assessment on what shows are coming up, and just timing it to be able to peak the body properly.
Yeah, it's true, because I think it would be really cool to do an international show, like, Spain or something. But I think some people forget that you have to really like have that timeline in your head for flying and stuff. Because have you done a show that you had to fly for yet?
No.
Okay, yeah, it's like a process.
Yeah. Well, especially like I ended up not doing it, but I almost went into Atlanta. Actually, I think it's next week. Is it next? Yeah. And I ended up not doing it because I had some variables happen in my life and I just needed to prioritize and it just wasn't the right timing. But that was a thought process is, water retention when you're swelling, in your legs and stuff like that, when you fly. These are things that people don't really consider when they jump on a plane, but as a bodybuilder, you have to factor that in. So my thought process is, do I fly out a week in advance and like let my body like push that water out and, so no, I haven't had to, but have you had to?
Yeah, I did it twice last year for my first amateur show. And then when I did USA's, when it was in Arizona, it was like, cause that was in my mind. I was like, if I want to turn pro, I kind of want to get that. I want to see what happens with the air travel. And And now that I work from home, you work from home too, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So like that was something I was like, let me try bringing my work and going early, like you said, because I think that's the way you have that ideally can work the best, especially if you're new to the whole process anyways. Try to get there a week early. And if you have to work, like we're kind of lucky that we can probably still take our work with us. So
It's that, yeah, the flexibility of being able to work remotely definitely aids my ability to have flexibility in the sport for sure.
oh yeah, it really was a game changer. I tell you that for prepping and ooh, I could take a lunch break nap if I needed to, because let's be honest, in prep, we crash pretty hard.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I would say that it really isn't a bad experience when you fly for a show, but a lot of asparagus and just, oh, and another little tip I'll give you too, or for anyone, those compression socks that you can get at like Walmart or whatever, the really tight ones for like swelling and stuff. Wear that in the airplane or even when you get home and put your feet up. But what a game changer that was to just put the socks on, and it helps with all of that too.
I'm
So
sure. Yeah.
yeah, but now that we're in the pro level, there's all these shows all over the place. So it's like exciting to think that we can travel for shows and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so now you're in your off season, correct? You, after the New York, you were like, let's just go into this off season, and probably, I know you're still waiting for feedback, but is there anything that you compared to the other the girls and you think you have to work on?
So I want to have overall development. I want to develop my hamstrings a bit more.
Okay.
I would like to actually add a little bit of size to my hamstrings and then bring in conditioning as well. The glute hammy connection is always a struggle point. I think a lot for pretty much every female, because as females with estrogen, we tend, that's where we store it, right? It's the hardest part, unless you have like amazing genetics or whatever.
And we're short. I think us short girls really struggle more.
And I want to develop my midsection a bit more. So that has always for forever has been a weak point of mine. Being that I started bodybuilding right after having my daughter. And so, you know, had I, you know, I used to have a really good midsection, but being really short and my stomach was really far out, and a really big, it was all belly, like all belly. So like coming back in, there's what's known as, I don't know if this is the proper way to say this, but it's something recti. It's like disty recti. I don't know. I'm saying this wrong. It's where there's ab separation, and then it doesn't like go back together all the way. And that's just a really common thing with pregnancy. And so that's something that was new to my body, you know, based on having a child. And I would like to focus on how to develop my abs a bit more in a way that doesn't add pressure going out and making it worse. So a lot of these things like stomach vacuums and doing like crunches in a vacuum, if that makes sense, so that the pressure is up and in and holding all of the ab muscles towards the body rather than like crunching and pushing away. So there's like a little bit of strategy behind that. But that's a big area that I would like to bring that plane in for a landing. And then the waistline, you can never get that waist tiny enough. I mean, that's a forever goal.
Oh yeah, and in figure, I'm like, if there's anything, you gotta, like you said, vacuums is really popular. I know I don't do them as often, but I'm more of a waist trainer person, which there's pros and cons to both. But it's really like, figure you got to keep it tight. I mean, even when I told you at the Pittsburgh, I heard the judges, they were on girls about their waist. They were like, you got to keep that in, even in the transitions. I think sometimes you get, you know, with posing, you have to practice so you have the endurance to keep it in. And I'm sure the vacuums even help just get used to that type of endurance of just holding in your breath or whatever. So,
well, it's amazing what can happen to the display of your body when you just engage a little bit differently. So like, for example, like a lot of people, like they have really bad posture. If you stand a certain way, you just lift your chest. It elongates and brings those lines in for landing. Or like hips, like if you have a posterior like pelvic tilt or something like that, and it's pushing forward, it can look like you have like a little bit of like a belly. And doing that like little like keeping your body straight and like keeping that up and tight chest up, it can take your physique from like all the way down here to up here, right? So it's can transform it, and you're not doing anything different with your muscles. You have the exact same amount of muscle. It's just how you carry it and how you engage that, and it takes some practice. So that's a huge part of my practicing is like when I'm doing my cardio, when I'm working out, like it's a mental thing. Like you really have to remind yourself to have the cognizant awareness of like what you're doing with your body. Are you actually holding tension in your abs, or are you letting that shit flop? Like, right?
Keep it mean and keep it tight.
Yeah.
Do you do any body work or chiropractor work too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every week, every single week, once a week. And then as I get closer to the show, I actually go twice a week.
Yeah.
And so I get like Groston done. It's like deep tissue work. I get that goes in and like literally like strips my muscles apart. Like it's painful, but it's worth it.
I'm like, I love it.
I know, I love it so much. It's like such a good game. I'm like, yes. And then I get chiropractic work done. It's all at the same place. Like he's like this, like I call him like the body guru. He's like do the work, head to toe.
Yeah, no, and I wanted to say that too, because I'm a huge advocate for that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, as soon as I started getting that weekly stuff done or whatever I can afford or get in the schedule, honestly, my dude's so hard to get into. That's the problem. I would love to go more, but he's so busy. I'm sure your guy is too, if he does everything.
Yeah, but I have him book me out. Like,
yeah,
I have to like book him. Like he's like 4 months like backed up, and I'll be like, just get me in, just put me in, and if I have to cancel, then I do, but I never do. So, yeah, it's great.
I hear, because do you feel like with the at least from the body work mindset, does it help you grow? Don't you feel like you grow? Like obviously it helps our posing and just loosening everything up, but I think getting that done regularly is actually what even helps the muscle grow more efficiently.
Well, absolutely. For a multitude of reasons. One, he's literally manually pushing blood into these areas that maybe don't get as much circulation because of the density of muscle or whatever it may be. So there's that. And then there's the aspect of it increases your range of motion. If you're locked up and you can't engage your muscles in your workouts, you're not going to be able to get the full range of motion. So if you're able to go in and increase that range of motion, and then in your workouts, your muscles are going to engage differently. So it adds like your body's ability to, build more muscle easily or more efficiently, as you said.
Right. Yeah. And we all know this sport is expensive, but I tell you what, I will pay what I have to for that. Yeah.
Girl, same, man. I do.
Yeah. And the chiropractor work, like you said, helps too with the posing, because I didn't get chiropractor work done until my last show. And my coach was like, you might need to go see the chiropractor, because like both of my side poses, there were parts of my leg that I couldn't quite connect to or flex hard enough, because it was just like the tilt was so weird. But as soon as I've been fixed up, I've been able to kind of correct those things. So that's why I wanted to bring that up too, because you mentioned about the tilt and stuff, about people's posture and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, just go to the chiropractor.
Yeah. Well, I actually have scoliosis in my back, which has affected my posing immensely. But going regularly, once I started going regularly, I think I've been going regularly for about 2 years now. And if I were to put a side by side of my first show, I did not do any chiropractic work. So if I have a side by side of my first show versus like one of my most recent shows, you can see that there was a very big curvature in my back. That I still have curvature in my back, but it is nowhere near as drastic. And I can engage in my posing better now. I still have room to grow, but I can now twist more and keep my hips forward, straight, while my upper body is twisting differently. Before I couldn't do that as much. So if you're limited, like there are resources of people out there who can help and fix those things. Nobody's damned. So.
Yeah, because those figure side poses, I tell girls, it's like a wet rag. You got to twist, man.
They are not natural. It's, the name of the game is to make it look natural and graceful, but none of these poses are natural at all. They're very difficult poses to be in.
And you have to pose to the judges. Some people, they're so used to their like mirror, and I'm like, no, this is going to look a little different because you're trying to bring it to the judges that are like below you.
Yeah.
So then it really feels unnatural if you haven't been practicing the right way. So that's interesting. And so do you still pose yourself, or you get help? Oh no, because you're working with Rachel, right? So, or no,
So I was working with her that was just for the choreography.
that's right.
Um,
Yeah.
However, I did reach out to her, and she's gonna be helping me with my individual um, presentation for Figure, since I'm staying with Figure. So I have not worked with her in that capacity yet, but we have that scheduled out. So I'm gonna be working with her, just figuring out like less about the mandatories and more about like what's my best display? Like, is it, the Model T pose, or do I want to eliminate that from my individual round, that sort of thing. So she's going to help me whittle that down and pick out my best angles. And then I also work with Kenny Wallach. I recruited him this past prep, and he's amazing.
Yep.
Man, he is such a mentor in this space that is unparalleled to any other posing mentor. He's got such clout for a reason. The way that he articulates when he is expressing how to like get into a pose or how to adjust a pose is very mechanical and easy to follow. Whereas other posers might be like, oh yeah, move your left foot, no, your other foot. And they're like trying to do this like
It's like
way.
a stupid shuffle.
Not really. Try and move a little bit that way. And the articulation, it gets lost in translation. But that's what stood out to me about him the most is his ability to articulate clearly, directly, and like instantly. And I just like everything he said, I was able to make the little adjustment. He's like, perfect. Yes, that's good. So I had a really good. Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He is very, very good at what he does, and I can't wait to continue to work with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. You sounds like you got a good team establishing, and like you said earlier with bodybuilding, we're just always learning, and as you go, then you start to add in some more tools or some help, but it sounds like for first year rookie season, it was successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't want to keep you forever, but I can always have you back on another time. But it was really nice to get like a recap kind of briefly of where you started pro and then pro show. So it was really exciting to have you on and kind of see these little details in your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was so great talking with you, and anytime.
Oh, great. Yeah. And I love that we're both, on the East Coast. So that's always easy with the time zone. So if anybody wants to find you on Instagram, it's like Soden _ IFBB Pro. And I know on there you've got some of your discount codes and stuff with Flavor Gang and the Chicken Pound. So those are all like great resources there too. Anything else you want to kind of bring up or promote?
Not necessarily. I mean, if there's anybody that has any questions, don't be shy, reach out. I do check my DMs. I do check my requests and stuff like that. So reach out, don't be shy. I am just looking to expand my capacity in this sport. I want to reach more people. I want to become a source of influence and hopefully inspiration for other people who are looking to follow in the footsteps and to join the league. So if anybody has any questions, reach out and just keep pushing forward.
Sounds good. And for everybody watching, I'll put your Ashely's information into my little bio thing below. And then, yeah, definitely reach out to you. I'll put the Instagram. And then is there any future YouTube for you? You ever think about vlogging?
To be determined. I actually have a little something in the works right now. So I'm going to be releasing a few things. So keep an eye out on my Instagram. I don't want to give away too much. It's kind of a secret on the DL right now. So but keep an eye out and you'll see some things coming your way.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Then everyone's going to have to stay tuned then. And then we'll come back on whenever maybe we're in prep again. Maybe we'll see what happens in the future then. Because I know I didn't want to ask about too many of your future plans because it sounds like real, let's just get into off season. But I wouldn't be surprised if we both start prep again at the same time or something.
I'm sure I will see you on one of these shows, girl. Yeah.
All right. Well, have a great day and I will talk with you soon.
That's great.
Thanks. Bye, Ashely.